hello there. I'm Bilchan.
I'm Nimakong.
I'm Banchan.
In this class, I'll read to all of you. Chapter 3, Section 2 of the picture of Dorian Gray.
As.
Ah.
The picture of Dorian Gray. Oscar Wilde. Chapter 3, Section 2. I'll back Englishmen against the world. Harry, said Lord Fermor, striking the table with his fist. They don't last. I am told, muttered his uncle. A long engagement exhausts them, but they are capital at a steeplechase. They take things flying. For her people, grumbled the old gentleman. Lord Henry shook his head. American girls are as clever at concealing their parents as Englishmen are concealing their past, he said, rising to go. They are pork packers. I hope so. Uncle George, for Dirtmuir's sake. I am told that pork packing is the most lucrative profession in America. She behaves as if she was beautiful. Most American women do. Why can't these American women stay in their own country? It is. That is the reason why. Like Eve. They are so excessively anxious to get out of it, said Lord Henry. Goodbye. Uncle George. I shall be late for lunch. If I stop any longer. Thanks for giving me the information I wanted. I always like to know everything about my new friends. Where are you lunching? At Aunt Agatha's. I have asked myself and Mr. Perth. Alf. Tell your Aunt Agatha. Harry. Not to bother me anymore with her charity appeals. I am sick of them. Well. Alright. Uncle George. I'll tell her. But it won't have any effect. Philanthropic people lose all sense of humanity. The old gentleman growled approvingly and rang the bell for his servant. Lord Henry passed up the low arcade into Burlington Street and turned his steps in the direction of Berkeley Square. So that was the story of Dorian Gray's parentage. Crudely as it had been told to him, it had yet stirred him by a suggestion of a strange, almost modern romance. A beautiful woman risking everything for a mad passion. A few wild weeks of happiness cut short by a hideous, treacherous crime. Months of restless agony. And then a child born in pain. The mother snatched away by death. The boy left to solitude and the tyranny of an old and loveless man. Yes. It was an interesting background. It posed the lad, made him more perfect, as it were. Behind every exquisite thing that existed, there's something tragic. Wolves had to be in travail, that the meanest flower might blow. And how charming he had been at dinner the night before. As with startled eyes and lips parted in frightened pleasure he had sat opposite to. In my club. The red candle shades staining to richer rose the wakening wonder of his face. Talking to him was like playing upon an exquisite violin. He entered to every touch and thrill of the both. There was something terribly enthralling in the exercise of influence. No other activity was like it. To project one's soul into some gracious form, and let it tarry there for a moment, Dear ones, our intellectual visa go back to one with all the added music of passion and youth, to convey one's temperament into another as though it were a subtle fluid or a strange perfume. There was a real drain, perhaps the most satisfying joy left to us in an age so limited and vulgar as our own, an age grossly carnal in its pleasures and grossly common in its aims. He was a marvellous type. This lad, whom by so curious a chance he had met in Basil's studio, or could be fashioned into a marvellous type. At any rate, grace was his, and the white purity of boyage, and beauty such as old Greek marbles kept for us. There was nothing that one could not do with him. He could be made a titan or a toy. What a pity it was that such beauty was destined to fade. And Basil, from a psychological point of view, how interesting he was. The new manner in art, the fresh mode of looking at life, suggested so strangely by the merely visible presence of one who was unconscious of it. All. The silent spirit that dwelt in dim woodland, and walked unseen in open field, suddenly showing herself, dried like not afraid, because in his soul who sought for her there had been wakened that wonderful vision, to which alone are wonderful things revealed, the mere shapes and patterns of things becoming, as it were, refined, and gaining a kind of symbolical value, as though they were themselves patterns of some other and more perfect from whose shadow they made real. How strange it all was. He remembered something like it in history. Was it not Plato, that artist in thought, who had first analysed it? Was it not Buonarroti who had carved it in the coloured marbles of a sonnet sequence? But in our own century it was strange. Yes. He would try to beat a Dorian Greywat, without knowing it. The lad was to the painter who had fashioned the wonderful portrait. He would seek to dominate him had already. Indeed, half done so. He would make that wonderful spirit his own. There was something fascinating in this sin of love and death. Suddenly he stopped and glanced up at the houses. He found that he had passed his and some distance, and smiling to himself, turned back. When he entered the somewhat sombre hall, the butler told him that he had gone into lunch. He gave one of the footmen his hat and stick and passed into the dining room. Late as usual. Harry, cried his aunt, shaking her head at him. He invented a facile excuse, and having taken the vacant seat next to her, looked round to see who was there. Dorian bowed to him shyly from the end of the table, a flush of pleasure stealing into his cheek. Opposite was the Duchess of Harley, a lady of admirable good nature and good temper, much liked by everyone who knew her, and of those ample architectural proportions that in women who are not duchesses are described by contemporary historians as stoutness. Exeter sat, and her right, Sir Thomas Burden, a radical member of Parliament, who followed his leader in public life and in private life followed the best cooks, dining with the Tories and thinking with the Liberals, in accordance with a wise and well-known rule. The post on her left was occupied by Mr. Erskine of Treadley, an old gentleman of considerable charm and culture, who have fallen, however, into bad habits of silence. Alan, as he explained once to Lady Agatha, said everything that he had to say before he was 30. His own neighbour was Miss Vandeleur, one of his oldest friends. A perfect saint almost woman, but so dreadfully dowdy that she reminded one of a badly bound hymn book. Fortunately for him, she had on the other side Lord, though the most intelligent middle-aged mediocrity, as bold as a ministerial statement in the House of Commons, with whom she was conversing in that intensely earnest manner, which is the one unpardonable error, as he remarked to himself, that all really good people fall into, and from which none of them ever quite escape. To be continued.